Hello, Steb here. Today I want to talk about sink marks and how I usually deal with them. So what is a sink mark? I would describe it as a dented imperfection on the surface of a kit. An important thing to note also is that the depth of these marks vary. Some people might have noticed them on bigger parts like rifles and shields. I also want to add that sink marks are actually very normal. I've seen people on forums claim that their kits are possibly defective or that they received something from a bad batch. But that isn't the case. Sink marks are actually a byproduct of the molding process. So is there an easy way to identify sink marks? Actually yes, and that is to look at the opposite side of molds, holes, and pegs. We can see here in these examples that sink marks usually trace the shape of whatever is on the opposite side. I'm going to be working on this high grade bawu, so I want to take this as an opportunity to show you some of my process. Let's start off with this wing here. If I put it under decent lighting, I can see that there's a small circle shaped dent here. We can also see that there's the same sized peg on the other side. I want to make the surface flat and leveled, so I'm going to use a sanding board. After lightly sanding the surface, I can see here that the dent didn't get hit by the sandpaper yet. The reason why I could tell is because it doesn't have the same scratches that the rest of the surface has. If I continue sanding it a little more, it should level. And after cleaning up the surface, I'm just going to put these two together for a quick comparison. The left side is the one that I just worked on, and the right side is the one that's straight out of the box. So that was pretty easy. Now, how would I deal with the deep sink mark? I can keep sanding here, but there's a big risk of changing the shape too much if I oversand it. So what I do in these situations is I fill it. I use a cyanoacrylate glue, aka CA glue, aka super glue. This stuff dries super fast and it sands super well. I actually use our own Alpha's high viscosity glue to fill in these marks. These work well for me, but there are a lot of different manufacturers and brands out there available. So I would advise using what works for you. I think it's really important to use whatever we're comfortable with. I also know plenty of modelers who use epoxy and UV putty for filling as well. The only things that I personally can't recommend are lacquer putty and sprue goo. I find that those tend to shrink over time, so I might have a harder time filling in the marks entirely. And after letting the glue dry for a few minutes, I could sand it flat. All done. Clean. I've also heard that matte coating the parts takes care of all the sink marks, but I think that depends. I'm actually not sure if... I actually don't think that matte coating could hide all the deep ones, like the one I just dealt with. But I have this Sazabi shield here, so I kind of want to do some testing. So this sink mark here is pretty deep as well. I'm going to take care of this one and two more that I see. And I'm going to leave the right side sink mark alone just to see how it looks in comparison after painting and top coating it. Alright, I'm going to spray some gray on this to see how it looks. And after letting it dry, I can see that the sink marks that I processed are completely gone. The sink mark on the right side is still there though, as expected. Alright, and now it's time to test the matte coating. Okay, so it's super dry and super matte now. If I look at it really closely, I can see it just faintly. Honestly though, if I look at it as a whole, it's pretty unnoticeable. So yeah, matte coating does a pretty good job at hiding these marks, even if it's not 100%. Some people might be wondering, why put in effort to get rid of these marks if matte coating hides most of it? Well, for me personally, it gives me a peace of mind. It feels good making my parts have a clean, uniform surface to paint on. And I would say the most important reason for me is that I don't really do fully matte finishes as much anymore. I've been really loving semi-gloss finishes lately, like with my Humbrabi and the Gab Slay. If I had to do everything in a matte finish just to hide these sink marks, I wouldn't have as much fun painting. I hope I did an okay job at showing how I deal with sink marks. This is kind of like my first tutorial-esque video, so I wasn't really sure on how to format it. I didn't want to be too dense on information, but I also didn't want to omit anything too crucial, so I would really appreciate your feedback or comments if you have any. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.